Welcome to the Amateur Musician. My name is John Hopkins and this is Drums Players Course Lesson 1. I'm so excited to have you back in these lessons, and we're going to jump into things assuming that you have the prior knowledge of the previous levels of lessons. Now, if you've jumped in here and missed the Foundations course and the First Steps course because you thought that you're a drummer and you can play the drums and you want to kick it up from this point, you're more than welcome to follow along. I might use some language from time to time that you don't necessarily understand, or I might do things slightly differently to how you learned them. I want to ask you one of two things. One, either have some patience with me that I'm teaching differently to your previous drum teacher, or two, go back and do the First Steps course so that you can be on the same wavelength in terms of the language I'm using and how I structured the foundational principles of these drum beats and the way that I'm building up to eventually you being an amateur musician, right? Who can kind of hold your own weight in an amateur music environment. If you have any questions throughout these courses, please feel free to email me and I will make every effort to respond to your email and give you whatever answers you're looking for or advice that you're looking for. Within reason, of course. Please don't spam me. I want to help you, but I also don't want to be spammed, just like I know you don't want to be spammed. Anyway, so we're going to jump in, assuming that you've got the basic foundational principles of the previous levels. So we've learned our 4/4 beat, our 6/8 beat, we've added some extra variations using the subdivisions, and ultimately we've also thrown in some drum fills right there at the end of the First Steps course. Now we're going to pick it up and we're going to, as we did in the previous level, we're going to start off by learning some rudiments. There's a couple of really important rudiments we need to learn, and we're going to start off today. We know the single stroke rudiment. We're going to kick it off, jump straight into what's called the double stroke rudiment. And basically, it's exactly what it says it is. When single stroke rudiments go right, left, doubles go right, left, right, left. You remember how we used to hold our drumstick in the previous level? We're going to never change that grip. But when we start doing the doubles and we start doing them faster and faster eventually at some point, it's going to become really imperative that we start using our wrist properly. But there's another thing that really matters as well, and that's kind of a throwing action where we throw the drumstick onto the pad. So if you watch my fingers at the back here, I'm holding the drumstick and then I kind of throw it down, right, to give the drumstick that space. But importantly, I actually don't want to leave it like that. I want to throw it down and then catch the drumstick after it's hit. Okay? So this throwing action, I think, is a really important action for you to learn. And you can learn it while doing singles. So you can do your right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. You can see my left hand's doing it as well. And I'm kind of exaggerating it, to be honest, but I'm trying to do that for your benefit. This, like, really, I'm throwing the stick and I'm releasing it on the downstroke. And as I'm picking the stick back up, I'm grabbing the stick again, right? I'm getting control of the stick. I don't want the stick to flop around once I've hit the practice pad. I want to control the stick, right, as I'm hitting. Now, as we do that, there's two ways we can approach the double, right? The first way is we can hit once, catch, and hit again and catch. And we're going to focus on that for now. So it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. My hands opening, closing, opening, closing. It's really going to help us in the long run as we pick up our tempo, right? Now, again, I'm not super fast. I'm not going to go into super fast tempos today. But it's important that we get that right because it's going to help us later. I want to encourage you to practice it. Practice it. For me, it's become sort of second nature to just do it. In fact, you can't really even see that I'm doing it because my stick is staying on my fingers the whole time, and it's like a bit of a closed circuit. Even though I'm opening it up, I've got control of the stick the whole time, and I really want you to learn that. I really want you to feel like this drumstick is an extension of your arms. So let's quickly put on a metronome at 80 beats per minute. It's going to be quite slow, but for now that's really beneficial for us. So here we go. So at this slow tempo, it's going to be quite easy, but now we can focus nicely on the opening and closing of our hands. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to kick it up to 120 beats per minute, I think, for now. In the next sessions and in your own practice time, you can go through the range of beats per minute. But let's quickly pick up 120. I just want to get this right. There we go. 120, right. I'm going to turn my mic off. The reason why I turn my mic off is because there's a bit of a delay between the click and my microphone, and it starts sounding really difficult, and it's difficult to play on time with the mic on. So you do have some challenges at slower tempos, but I highly recommend practicing at those slower tempos. It helps with your focus and your concentration, something I'm really bad at, by the way. So as with our single stroke rudiments, we went through the single stroke rudiments, and then we also subdivided the metronome further, right? You'll remember us doing that. And we can do exactly the same thing with the doubles, right? So as the metronome's going 1, 2, 3, 4, we can go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, which is now a little bit more exciting, a little bit more exhilarating, and a little bit more in the tempo that we're hoping for, but far more difficult to ramp up the tempo because we're effectively doubling how many hits we need to do in the same amount of time. So before we subdivide, let me do like a short bar for you at 140 beats per minute. Okay, so obviously that was just doing the 1, 2, 3, 4, and you see how that tempo looks. Now if I had to try and double that tempo, you might notice that my entire technique changes because now I'm ramping up the tempo and I'm no longer doing this very drastic open and close thing. And we're going to learn how different this looks in a moment when we start ramping up the tempo. There's actually 2 different ways or 2 different techniques we use as we ramp up the tempo. But we're going to go back to 80 beats per minute for now, and we're going to subdivide that further, right? So we're going to do the 80 beats per minute, and we're going to do not the quarter notes, we're going to do the 8th notes, right? So it's a 1 and 2 and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Alright, so at this tempo we can still kind of do the throw and catch, right? Throw and catch, throw and catch, throw and catch, throw and catch. Dum 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 dum. However, the moment we start picking it up much past this tempo, at least for me and my skill level, I'm sure there's drummers out there who could do the throw and catch method at 5,000 beats per minute. That's not me. But the moment I start getting here by about 100 beats per minute and doing 8th notes instead of quarter notes, then I start implementing another technique. Now, if I remember correctly, This technique is called the Mueller technique, I think. I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that. You're welcome to Google it and figure it out for yourself. Instead of throwing and catching for each hit, right, we end up only throwing for one hit and catching on the next hit. So instead of doing throw, catch, we end up doing throw, catch, throw, catch, throw, catch, throw, catch, throw, catch. So you see how not only are we subdividing the beat, but we're subdividing our technique to some extent, right? So instead of throw, catch, we're doing throw, catch, 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 throw, catch. Now there's a couple of variations to this technique, although I don't really think the technique varies. I think the teaching method of the technique varies. And again, names of techniques and stuff like that doesn't really matter so much. What really matters is you being able to play the thing, right? So I need you to practice the thing. But how some people teach it, and this is actually how I was taught it myself, is to whip the drum on the first hit and then hit it. So you whip on the first hit and you hit again on the way up. So your wrist action, it becomes a very much wrist action practice instead of a hand action practice, which I actually think both are valuable. I use both in my playing and I use both at the same time. In fact, again, to me, it all kind of blends into one actual technique eventually. So that kind of wrist action is quite helpful, and I think it can be a benefit to learning the technique, is focusing on that wrist action. But I'm also doing the finger thing, right? When I hit down, I'm opening, and when I come up, I'm closing. And I actually think that a combination of those two things is what really gets you comfortable. So you've been practicing the throw and catch, throw and catch, throw and catch. And effectively now what I'm suggesting is throw and catch on the way up, throw and catch. So the catch becomes a hit in and of itself. We're catching the stick back into the practice pad. Throw it down, catch it up, throw it down, catch it up, throw, catch, throw, catch, throw, catch, throw, catch. And basically, if you practice this and you get really, really good at it, which I'm not really, really good at it, but if you practice it and get really good at it, you're going to have so much speed around your drum kit. It's like stupid cool how this technique just opens up a world of speed to you. But anyway, let's do 100 beats per minute. I don't know if you saw, I'm doing this little, like, I'm flowing with my drumsticks and I'm doing this kind of backwards pedaling thing, right? So I'm doing this kind of thing. And then I'm doing my two hits at the bottom of my sort of circle, right? Now the reason why I do that at these tempos is to try and keep my arms flowing so that I'm actually really getting a little bit of that whipping action going back on the first hit down, right? So my first hit ends up coming from high, and my second hit has to happen down here, and I create this circle, and it just helps me stay in that technique. But that's what I say, it's kind of like a wrist, kind of like a hand action kind of thing, and it all blends together eventually. All right, so we're going to wrap this up to 120 beats per minute and do this technique once again. So let's jump over to the next rudiment. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you in the guided practice session.